On the distant planet of Aperia, a harsh and unforgiving world teemed with strange and dangerous creatures, among them the solitary alien known as Zephyr. Towering 3 heads taller than the average human, Zephyr possessed a ball-blue head and skin composed of rippling muscle fibers. His piercing yellow eyes and black claws heightened his intimidating appearance. Despite his fearsome reputation, Zephyr was cursed with an insatiable hunger for the life force that flowed through living beings' veins. For centuries, Zephyr roamed the barren wastelands of Beria, his origins a mystery even to himself. The few intelligent species on the planet spoke of him in hushed whispers, weaving tales of his supposed savagery and bloodlust. However, the truth was more complex than the rumors suggested. Zephyr was not a mindless killer but a being tormented by an uncontrollable need for sustenance. Despite his loneliness and yearning for connection, Zephyr had resigned himself to a life of solitude and misery until a small human spacecraft crashed on Aperia's surface. Among the crew was Arya, a young girl full of wonder at the universe's endless possibilities. Separated from her crewmates and injured in the unforgiving terrain, Arya encountered Zephyr near the crash site. Drawn by the scent of fresh blood, Zephyr initially contemplated draining Arya's life force to satisfy his hunger. However, something about the girl gave him pause. Unable to harm her, Zephyr carried Arya to safety in a nearby cave and tended to her wounds. Over time, an unlikely bond formed between the lonely alien and the stranded human girl. As Arya taught Zephyr the basics of human language and culture, he shared the secrets of Beria with her, guiding her through its treacherous landscape and protecting her from its dangers. For the first time in his existence, Zephyr found hope and a chance at connection. However, their time together was limited. Knowing Arya's crewmates would eventually find her, Zephyr led her back to the crash site, where her rescue awaited. Despite the celebration of their reunion, Zephyr slipped away into the shadows, unwilling to face the rejection he expected. Yet, Arya refused to let him go, chasing after him and pleading for him to stay, unwilling to accept his departure. Through all their trials and tribulations, the alien turned to face her, his yellow eyes brimming with deep sadness. "You don't understand, Arya. Your people will never accept me. To them, I am nothing but a monster, a creature to be feared and despised," he lamented. Arya vehemently shook her head, her voice filled with conviction. "That's not true, Xander. You saved my life. You showed me kindness and compassion when no one else would. If that's not proof that you're more than just a monster, then I don't know what is." Xander remained silent, torn between his desire to stay with Arya and his fear of rejection. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you really believe that, Arya? Do you truly think that your people could ever see me as anything other than a threat?" Arya's answer was immediate and unwavering. "I know they can, Xander, because I see you for who you really are. And I promise, no matter what happens, I will always be there for you." With those words, something shifted inside Xander. For the first time in his long and lonely existence, he allowed himself to hope, to believe that perhaps there was a place for him in this vast and uncaring universe. Hand in hand, the lonely alien and the human girl made their way back to the waiting spacecraft, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring together. As the ship lifted off from Aperia's surface, Xander couldn't help but marvel at the strange twists of fate that had brought him to this moment. He, the feared and reviled outcast, had found acceptance and companionship in the most unlikely of places. And though he knew that the road ahead would be far from easy, he also knew that with Arya by his side, he could face anything the universe might throw at him. For in the end, it was not the opinions of the many that mattered, but the love and understanding of the few. In Arya, Xander had found something far more precious than he had ever dared to dream of. He had found a home. As the human spacecraft carried Xander and Arya through the vast expanse of space, the unlikely pair found themselves facing a new set of challenges. The crew, initially wary of the intimidating alien, soon came to realize that he posed no threat to them. Arya's unwavering trust in Xander played a significant role in bridging the gap between the lonely outsider and the tight-knit group of explorers. Xander, for his part, found himself struggling to adapt to the unfamiliar environment of the ship. The sterile metallic surroundings were a far cry from the rugged wilderness of Hyperia, and the constant hum of the engines grated on his sensitive ears. But with Arya's gentle guidance and the crew's growing acceptance, he slowly began to find his place among them. As the weeks turned into months, Xander proved himself to be an invaluable asset to the expedition. His keen senses and knowledge of the universe's more obscure corners helped the crew navigate through treacherous asteroid fields and avoid hostile alien encounters. And when a malfunction in the ship's life support systems threatened to end the mission prematurely, it was Xander who devised a clever solution using his understanding of Aprian technology. But even as he grew more comfortable in his new role, Xander couldn't shake the nagging feeling that his dark past would eventually catch up with him. The hunger that had driven him to commit unspeakable acts on Apiria still lurked beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the monster he had once been. It was during a routine survey mission on a seemingly uninhabited planet that Xander's worst fears were realized. The crew had split up to cover more ground, with Arya and Xander tasked with exploring a series of deep caves. As they made their way deeper into the subterranean labyrinth, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber filled with the remnants of an ancient civilization. Among the crumbling ruins and faded hieroglyphs, Xander spotted a familiar symbol etched into the stone floor. It was the same mark that had been branded onto his flesh centuries ago, a painful reminder of the experiments that had turned him into the creature he was today. Arya sensed his distress and placed a comforting hand on his arm. "Xander, what is it? What's wrong?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Xander shook his head. His yellow eyes filled with a haunted look. "This place. I know this place. It's where they created me, where they turned me into a monster," he whispered hoarsely. As he spoke, the memories came flooding back, the pain, the fear, the endless days of torture and experimentation at the hands of a shadowy organization known only as the Convergence. Arya listened in horror as Xander recounted his tale, her heart breaking for the lonely alien who had endured so much. When he finished, she wrapped her arms around him, holding him close as he trembled with the weight of his memories. "You're not a monster, Xander," she whispered fiercely. "You're a survivor. And no matter what happened in your past, it doesn't define who you are now." Xander clung to her like a lifeline, drawing strength from her unwavering support. And in that moment, he knew that he would do whatever it took to protect this small, fragile human who had shown him such kindness and compassion. But their tender moment was shattered by the sudden appearance of a group of heavily armed aliens, their weapons trained on Xander and Arya. The leader of the group, a tall insectoid creature with glowing red eyes, stepped forward, addressing Xander in a language he had hoped never to hear again. Subject X-217. The alien hissed, its mandibles clicking together in a grotesque approximation of a smile. "You have been a very naughty experiment, running away like that. But now, it's time to come home." Xander tensed, his claws flexing as he prepared to defend Arya at any cost. But before he could make a move, Arya stepped forward, her chin raised in defiance. "He's not going everywhere with you," she declared, her voice ringing out clear and strong in the ancient chamber. "Xylan is a member of our crew, and we protect our own." The insectoid alien let out a harsh buzzing laugh. "Foolish child, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Subject X-27 belongs to the Convergence, and we will have him back, one way or another." But Arya refused to back down. With a fierce cry, she launched herself at the nearest alien, catching it off guard with a swift kick to the midsection. Xylan, spurred into action by her bravery, let out a deafening roar and charged forward, his claws rending flesh and bone as he tore through the ranks of the Convergence soldiers. The battle was brutal and bloody, the ancient chamber echoing with the sounds of screams and the clash of weapons. Xylan fought with a savage ferocity born of desperation, determined to protect Arya at any cost. For her part, the human girl held her own against the alien attackers, her quick reflexes and sharp mind proving to be a formidable match for their superior technology. In the end, it was Xylan who delivered the final blow, his claws finding the throat of the insectoid leader and tearing it out in a spray of viscous green blood. As the alien crumpled to the ground, the remaining Convergence soldiers fled, their resolve shattered in the face of Xylan's fury. Panting heavily, Xylan turned to Arya, his eyes wide with concern. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice rough with exertion. Arya nodded, a fierce grin spreading across her face. "Never better. I told you, Xylan, we protect our own." With those words, she reached out and took his hand, her small, delicate fingers intertwining with his large, clawed ones. In that moment, Xylan knew that he had found something worth fighting for, something worth living for. Together, they made their way back to the ship, battered but unbroken. As they stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by outside the viewport, Xylan knew that he had finally found his place in the universe. It wasn't on Aperia, or with the Convergence, or even among the stars themselves. It was here, by Arya's side, a part of something greater than himself, a part of a family. As the ship journeyed onward through the vast expanse of space, Xylan found himself growing more and more accustomed to life among the human crew. Under Arya's patient tutelage, he learned to read and write in their language, his quick mind absorbing the new information like a sponge. He even began to assist with the day-to-day maintenance of the ship, his strong, dexterous claws proving invaluable in the cramped and intricate workings of the vessel's systems. But despite his growing sense of belonging, Xylan couldn't shake the feeling that his past would never truly let him go. The Convergence, though beaten back for now, was still out there somewhere, waiting for the chance to reclaim their lost experiment. And then there was the matter of his hunger, the insatiable thirst for life energy that had driven him to commit such atrocities on Aperia. Arya, ever attuned to his moods, sensed his unease and did her best to comfort him. She would sit with him for hours, listening as he poured out his fears and doubts, offering words of encouragement and support. And when the hunger grew too strong to bear, she would hold him close, her mere presence a soothing balm to his tortured soul. It was during one of these moments of vulnerability that Xylan finally found the courage to ask the question that had been weighing on his mind for so long. "Arya," he said softly, his yellow eyes searching her face for any sign of hesitation or fear. "Why do you stay with me? Why do you care so much for a monster like me?" The human girl smiled, her hand reaching up to cup his cheek with a tenderness that made his heart ache. "You're not a monster, Xylan. You're my friend, and I care about you because I see the goodness in you, even if you can't see it yourself." Xylan closed his eyes, leaning into her touch like a plant seeking the sun. "But what if I lose control again? What if the hunger takes over and I hurt someone, hurt you?" Arya's grip tightened, her voice fierce with conviction. "Then we'll face it together. I'm not going to abandon you, Xander. Not now. Not ever," Arya declared, her voice filled with unwavering determination. With those words, something inside Xander finally broke free. The walls he had built up over centuries of isolation and self-loathing came crumbling down, and for the first time in his long, lonely existence, he allowed himself to truly feel. He wept, great heaving sobs that shook his massive frame, and Arya held him through it all, her own tears mingling with his as she whispered words of comfort and love. From that moment on, something shifted between them. The bond that had been forged in the caves of that distant planet grew stronger, deeper, until it was as if they were two halves of the same whole. They moved in perfect sync, anticipating each other's needs and desires without a word needing to be spoken. And when the Convergence finally caught up with them, as Xander had always known they would, they faced the threat together, side by side. They fought with a ferocity that struck fear into the hearts of their enemies, their combined strength and cunning more than a match for anything the insectoid aliens could throw at them. In the end, it was Xander who struck the final blow, his claws tearing through the armor of the Convergence's leader like tissue paper. As he stood over the fallen alien, his chest heaving with exertion, Xander felt a sense of peace wash over him. He was free now, truly free. The Convergence would never again hold sway over him, and the hunger that had once defined his existence was now nothing more than a distant memory. He had found his purpose, his reason for being, in the love and acceptance of a small, fragile human girl. And as he looked down at Arya, her face streaked with blood and grime but still so beautiful to him. He knew that he would spend the rest of his days by her side, fighting for the chance to build a better future together. A future where monsters like him could find redemption, where the lonely and the lost could find a place to belong. A future where love and compassion could triumph over fear and hatred. Hand in hand, they turned to face the stars, ready to embrace whatever challenges the universe might throw their way. For they knew that as long as they had each other, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. And so the lonely alien and the human girl who had saved him set out to explore the infinite wonders of the cosmos, their hearts full of hope and their spirits unbroken. Theirs was a love that defied the odds, a bond that transcended species and circumstance. And though the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, they knew that they would face it all together, side by side, until the very end. For in a universe that could be so cold and unforgiving, they had found something truly precious, a home in each other's hearts, a sanctuary from the storms of fate. And that, in the end, was all that mattered.